guy I think that does coverage of the Tennessee Volunteers is my next March over. And you know what? Tennessee won a game in it, which may show that, how far the program has fallen, that we're actually excited about a 1-4 stretch. But yes, a victory against Auburn that not a lot of people saw coming, and for that matter, trading punches at the University of South Carolina. Caleb Calhoun as a right now, where does Tennessee go from here?
Using Charlotte to regroup a couple of areas. I think the big thing about Charlotte, assuming it's a fallout of that victory, which I am assuming that, but I will say Nick Davis was ready for with South Carolina, particularly getting Marcus Tatum more acclimated to playing left tackle and playing for Trey Smith. I don't think we can understate how much of an impact the quick news breaking of him not being able to play, and then 2 days later, the Vols having to do without him had on South Carolina. But assuming they do that, I wrote recently that I wouldn't project Tennessee to win out right now.
Take right there, but okay.
This Kentucky at home, which is crazy. But imagine, so Tennessee beats Charlotte this week. It won't do much for them, but it'll boost them a little bit. And I think we're all under the assumption that Kentucky is going to get obliterated by Georgia this weekend. We could end up being wrong on that. They could surprise us again. But assuming those two things happen, Tennessee's chances of beating Kentucky probably go above 40% next week. Which, I mean, anybody tells you, like, a 40% chance, heck, an NFL kicker kicking a 35-yard field goal has a 40% chance of hitting it.
Yeah.
So,
I will tell you that, I mean, it does show a little bit. We're talking about, it could beat Kentucky now. I mean, how times have changed, before when defensive backfield for the Kentucky Wildcats and such. He was Arena football's first most valuable player. That's why that name rings a bell to me. But anyway, it goes into, I guess we can say this. How has this occurred? I mean, how has Tennessee football fallen to 3-5, fallen to, wouldn't it be great to beat Kentucky and avoid back-to-back losses to Kentucky? I think it's time to say, wait a minute, hold on a second here. How is it that Tennessee is where they are right now and Kentucky is where they are right now? What's the cause for this?
Well, there's a thousand factors to go into with that. And, I mean, the firing of Fulmer started it, which I totally always disagree with, because Fulmer had 2 losing seasons his final 4 years in Knoxville.
Yes.
And he only won the East in 2007 because Tennessee got to play the easiest schedule from the West. So I've always rejected that notion. But I agree with you. It's kind of crazy to talk about, but I will point out, you bring up that 1984 loss to Kentucky, but from 1985, the very next year, the Vols launched arguably a 20-year run that is the best 20-year run they've had in the modern era by far.
Oh, sure.
From 85 to 2004. And there's a lot of things that have happened. But, yeah, I mean, most recently, it's, again, I mean, in a nutshell, in a vacuum, this year's team has endured. Kentucky really built themselves and Mark Stoops' identity as a defensive coach this year. And, I mean, you got to give them credit for that. And so, yeah, it's crazy to think about that, to say, maybe Tennessee can beat Kentucky. But there's a few times in history where that has been the case. I remember even Johnny Majors' first year, the Vols almost beat Kentucky that year. Kentucky was a top 10 team that year.
Yeah, in 76, they tied, unofficially, they lost it on tiebreakers, but they tied Georgia for the SEC crown in 76, but yeah.
Yeah, so I could write a book about how many things caused the program to fall, because it wasn't really just one thing. It wasn't the firing of Fulmer, but it was the succession of bad hires after Fulmer. The Lane Kiffin recruiting class was by itself a major step. Butch Jones, who I think we all agree has done the best job time. You know, he didn't really build the program on solid brick-by-brick foundation like he said.
No, there was, like I said, there's been never less satisfying 9-4 records, I think. And maybe it's the expectations were too high. Maybe it was Butch being Butch, where his personality was, football coach on a major college football program. There are political elements of it. Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com. And you've got to be a real special kind of lunatic in Tennessee with their supportive fan base to screw that up. Now, maybe 5-star hearts works when you're winning the SEC, but it doesn't work when you're, losing to Vanderbilt. That's the problem there. Jeremy Pruitt is still in his honeymoon stage because they now have this very blunt guy who on his coach's show says, I should have done that. We need more there. Quit making penalties, one of those things. That can grow old, in time too. But right now, it's the change that Tennessee fans, at least from the personality aspect, they want from their coach, I think. And I think that's an easy thing to say. Yeah.
I would add to that, and also one of the reasons that's so welcoming is because Rick Barnes has that attitude, and Tennessee fans are seeing how well the basketball program is doing with Rick Barnes. He's never really out there giving his players too much credit for him.
Now, one of the things, Caleb, one of the tricks of coaching, or it's very relevant in baseball managing, but other elements as well, is Pete Franklin, who's a sports talk show host from another era. Passed away more than a decade ago. But he once wrote that the baseball manager's job is to tell the media that he's got the worst team ever, but he's winning with it. And really, there's something to that at any level of coaching, perhaps less in basketball than in baseball. But yeah, there is something of a, hey, look, I have really bad talent here, but I'm beating Auburn, that sort of element that a coach can sell. And that was something that Butch Jones could not sell. That was something that, but no, when you look at where Tennessee is, I think one of the things also is quite literally TV contracts. TV contracts made it so that, Vanderbilt could have an indoor facility now. And back in the 1990s, the drawing 100,000 fans, that meant that you were going to get significantly more revenue and you had better facilities than your opponents. In terms of facilities in the 1990s, Caleb Calhoun, and forgive me if I've told you that they had a stadium expansion. Their seating capacity went up to what now seems to be. They allowed more students to go to games. That same year, Ole Miss, they added lights to their stadium. So that should tell you something about the advantages that Tennessee had in facilities back then that they really don't now. And that was one of the reasons why I think they were able to win so much in the 90s, and now it's much more of an even level. And I think that's one of the things that Tennessee has going against them now these days. But anyway, they do not have going against them a tough opponent this week. Charlotte, we can hear how tough that it is for the Vols to, they're well coached, or, the coach speak and all this. But I don't know, how do you think Charlotte matches up to some of the other weak sisters that, but UTEP, what kind of an opponent is Charlotte? Is there any possible way they could win this game?
There might be Monroe 11 years ago, and my guess is Tennessee will be thinking a lot about Kentucky, and Jeremy Pruitt will be experimenting with a lot of stuff. Charlotte, the crazy part, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but into November, if Tennessee won on Saturday, Charlotte would be their second best win of the season at this point, only to Auburn. But because they are 4-4, they were 1-11 last year, but they're 4-4 this year, which is significantly better than UTEP, who were playing an FCS opponent. So I would say that Charlotte right now would be their tomorrow. Obviously, given the key to the SEC play, I'm not a reporter yet, but I'll take a little more look into them tonight and tomorrow. But knowing they are 4-4, Brad Lambert is a veteran coach there. So Pruitt is right to say they're well coached. I feel like he's Lou Holtzing them a little bit.
Yeah.
But he got that from Nick Saban, who, would every year, the week before the Auburn game, when they play that whichever horrible team it is every week, he's always like, And so Pruitt's getting that from his former ball.
We're looking at this, and Caleb Calhoun, talking to him of allfortennessee.com. You mentioned the loss of Trey Smith. Now, I am of the belief that the loss of Trey Smith, it's impactful. There are many that would say he's their best player, but I also look at it, okay, it's a lineman. It's one of a unit. It's not like losing a great wide receiver or a great running back, in my opinion. I've got to believe have these stats. It seemed to me that Jared Guarantano did have a lot of time to throw, and the Vols only allowed 2 sacks against South Carolina. So, I mean, you speak of the impact, but how big is this? I mean, Joe Thomas is going to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but still the Cleveland Browns only won 1 game him at left tackle. How impactful do you think that this loss could potentially be for Tennessee?
So, and I wrote about this today. I think on Saturday it was impactful. Guarantano did actually have more time to throw than usual. And I don't know what was wrong with him, but he was missing on his deep throws more than he had. I could believe that he may be a little. I don't know if he's hurt or what, but he was underthrowing a lot of balls on the deep ball. He was good on the crossing ball. But I would say that where it made an impact was that final drive. Just Marcus Tatum did miss DJ Wana coming around the edge, and it was a 3-man rush, and he had committed an offside penalty right before then. And it was because Tatum had all the offensive line positions for the past 2 years. So I think it made an impact on Saturday just enough, not a significant one, but just enough. But I don't think it'll make an impact long term. I think if Tatum can work in there for a full 2 weeks against Charlotte, should be a game where he can kind of get a few reps, get more used to playing the position. He could be in much better shape for Kentucky, particularly since, and I have to say this, the left guard play on Saturday was the best it's been all year for the Vols. And it has been pretty reliable. I mean, I'm sure you saw it. The Vols were actually running the ball pretty well on Saturday. I was shocked they didn't stick with it in the second half.
What I was kind of impressed with Tennessee in the game against South Carolina, 3rd down conversion, at least in the first part of the game. Maybe, as you said, as Guarantano was asked to expand the field, lengthen the field a little bit more. He talked that's going to, be able to throw long bombs like we saw Jake Bentley do, for crying out loud, in the football game and such. When we look back at the football game, though, the Tennessee fans, they'll point to the fumble that wasn't at the goal line right before, South Carolina scored the tying touchdown. But I'm always one, and Jeremy Pruitt not challenging it or not making more of a stink about that, and instead focused on the things that his team itself could control, the penalties and such. But a question on the last drive, or I should, say the penultimate drive of the game, not going for the 52-yard field goal or not punting. We've got the benefit of hindsight here, but, if there was a well-placed punt, that game's probably going into overtime, the way that I look at it. What was your thought of the decision late in the game to go for it on 4th down from, the 35-yard line of South Carolina in a tie game?
I didn't question not punting. I did question not going for a field goal, thinking, let your kicker, who's got a strong leg, let him give it a shot. But if they feel that he didn't have the leg to do it, they feel he didn't. I wasn't totally against punting, because I'm a big believer in playing win probability. And given the way South Carolina's offense was playing compared to the way Tennessee's offense was playing, they had a better chance of converting that 4th down than stopping South Carolina, even if they did pin them inside the 10-yard line. And so I've always argued, it's the old Bill Belichick going for it on 4th and 2 against Peyton Manning in 2009 when everybody said he has to punt it. But I'm like, even though he didn't get it, and he only didn't get it because I think it was Kevin Falk bobbled the ball a little bit, I think the punt is the most overused play in football. And if you go for it, you actually are giving your team 2 chances to win. You're giving them the chance to convert the 1st down, and you're still giving their defense a chance to get a stop. So if
Elon to spin in his grave by saying the punt is an overrated play. But then again, modern football, he may be right. Still, I like the idea of field position and such. I think it has a place in modern football myself here. Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee. 3 straight losses to South Carolina. I know you're not the biggest Will Muschamp fan in the world. I've got another regular guest on here, SoCon John Hooper, who is based in South Carolina. And in the middle of the football game, he's tweeting me what a terrible coach Will Muschamp. Now, so Will Muschamp at 7-0 against Tennessee. How is that possible?
Well, to wonder how it's possible, there's a reason Butch Jones and Derek Dooley have both been fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I've said this for a while that 2016, that South Carolina loss was really the turning point for Butch Jones. Just overrated last year, and I'm not high on him. But at the same time, I don't think he's a horrible coach. I just think he's kind of middle of the road, and so it's one of those where you give him 2 weeks to prepare, like he had this past week, like he had this past game. He could definitely make an impact. Muschamp is, I've said this before, he's 6-2 off the bye, and he's 2-1 against ranked teams off bye weeks. And he's won his last 4, so he does know how to win off the bye, and he does know X's and O's well. I question him as far as things like getting his players always motivated to play and stuff. He the deep ball from Garantano.
Yeah.
Gave up those crossing routes all game.
That's a good point. And he talked about, we think he throws the deep ball well. And before the game, Will Muschamp did, Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com. And I was saying, really? Really? What? You really? Did you see the Florida game? You got those films there, Will? Doomed. I got to explain this. South Carolina won 5 games against Spurrier, who was peaking. And you have, Will Muschamp, who is sort of like, blah. Now you see one of the reasons why state rivalry and such. And I think there's something to it. I think that Muschamp's stock is going to go down after he... I do look at this, but I see 3 straight victories for South Carolina and Tennessee. And I think that that's a big battle. The Tennessee Volunteers of the 1990s won a lot of games because they were able to recruit South Carolina. The national champions had their entire defensive line from the Palmetto State. And the Gamecocks and Tigers were losing big time back then, for that matter, for the Vols.
Well, I'll judge it more next year. I would argue that you're right. They have won 3 straight, but if you think about it, this was a year where South Carolina is playing at what I would consider as peak as they're going to be under Will Muschamp, and Tennessee is. Okay. If you're a Vols fan, you hope they're as bad as they're going to be under Jeremy Pruitt, and they still under Butch Jones his first year when that was again another one of the worst Tennessee teams possible. Sure. He could be coaching. He beat the best team South Carolina's ever had. Yes. In 2013.
Yes. I think that's point out. The big catch on, the name of the player is escaping me right now. The big kicker, it was against Tennessee. The game was, and I think that significantly changed a lot about the South Carolina program and a lot in Auburn. In the SEC championship game, that's a game they probably were more equipped to win than, say, Missouri was. So who knows? But anyway, that was a very big game, I think, in the battle between the 2 teams and such. Okay, we haven't really talked about you mentioned Rick Barnes, but Tennessee basketball is picked 6th in the country and only behind Kentucky in the preseason conference rankings and all this. No one is build upon last year's team, that they don't make the Sweet 16 or that they don't have a high seeding in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if they necessarily have to win the SEC, but I think that people are expecting this team to make a run in.
Well, I put it a little bit more on the coach. I've talked about this before, but if I'm a Vols fan, I'm having cautious optimism right now because Rick Barnes has never built off a successful season the way he was expected in Texas. Mm-hmm. And so this is really a test for him. I think he's handling things different this time. I think Barnes knows that. If you notice, he's not been complacent at all. open about, which is on him. And there's no big name, like at Texas Eastern enjoyed a recruit coming in to start this year to mess up the chemistry. I don't think DJ Burns is going to start, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a huge positive for the Vols. And again, let's not forget that if Kyle Alexander isn't hurt, they may have made a Final Four run last year. I think we all agree that that was one of the biggest reasons for their second round loss. Kyle Alexander's injury, and John Fulkerson wasn't fully healthy yet.
Yes, I got that. And yeah, Kingsport native.
It's fair to say that if they could ever break through and win a national championship under Barnes, then you could question if Tennessee's as much of a basketball program as a football program now. But I think one advantage the Vols have to start doing is they got to figure out a way to make their gigantic athletic budget an advantage. Because they have, even over other SEC teams, they have a huge athletic budget.
I agree with that, and it's one of the reasons why I say that paying the athlete would be the more beneficial for the University of Tennessee than perhaps any other school in the country. I don't know if that's the best thing for college athletics, but yeah, I think that there is no university in the country that wouldn't benefit more from paying the athletes than the University of Tennessee. Not even Texas. That's my opinion. Tri-City Sports Now will continue here. I didn't even get the Banks moving to linebacker, but I think everybody thinks that's a good move. Calhoun, all for Tennessee, the one true journalist covering the Vols, and we'll be back. A lot of football stuff coming up. Hey, you know what? We've got the trade deadline in the NFL, and tonight they're going to be announcing how the college football playoff is going to be slated at this point. Tri-City Sports Now. Is that the best?